While everyone's still talking about what didn't happen at the trade deadline, something just went down in Allen Park that could be the spark this team desperately needs right now. I've got the inside scoop on a lightning-fast decision that Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes just pulled off. And when you hear what this means for our special teams unit and the depth chart moving forward, you're going to understand why this timing is absolutely crucial. Stick with me, because what I'm about to break down changes the entire complexion of how we're approaching the second half of the season. And there's a reason they moved this quickly right after that gut-wrenching loss to Minnesota. Welcome to Lions News Fan Report, your home for the latest updates, breaking news, and insider rumors about our beloved Detroit Lions. I'm bringing you real-time analysis that cuts through the noise and delivers exactly what you need to know as a die-hard Lions fan. So here's the situation we're dealing with right now. Coming off that bye week, we all expected the Lions to come out firing on all cylinders against the Vikings, right? Dan Campbell had extra time to prepare. The coaching staff had 2 weeks to game plan. And we were riding high with one of the best records in the NFC. But what happened? On Sunday was a reality check that stung in ways we haven't felt all season. That 27-24 loss exposed some vulnerabilities, particularly on defense and in the kicking game. And Campbell didn't mince words when he addressed the media afterward. He took full responsibility, saying the Vikings caught them unprepared, which is something you rarely hear from a head coach, especially one as competitive as Dan Campbell. But here's what really stood out to me. Campbell specifically mentioned that Minnesota made key plays on special teams that gave them momentum throughout that game. Special teams. That's not something we've struggled with consistently this season. But in that particular matchup, it became a difference maker, and you better believe the coaching staff took notice. Now, when you lose a game like that, especially coming off a bye, you don't just sit around feeling sorry for yourself. You make adjustment. You identify the problems, and you fix them immediately. And that's exactly what happened this week in Allen Park. The front office and coaching staff went to work, evaluating every aspect of the roster, looking at where they could add depth, where they could improve versatility, and how they could ensure that what happened against Minnesota doesn't become a trend. Remember, we didn't make any moves at the trade deadline. Some fans were frustrated about that, wondering if we should have added a big name or made a splash to bolster the roster. But Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell have always operated with a clear philosophy: build from within, trust your process, and make strategic moves that fit your culture. They weren't going to panic and mortgage the future just to make a headline-grabbing trade. Instead, they stayed patient. They evaluated their options. And then the very next day after the deadline passed, they made their move. Here's where things get interesting. And this is where that lightning-fast decision I mentioned earlier comes into play. The Lions had a roster spot open up when they placed offensive lineman Christian Mahogany on injured reserve. Mahogany, a rookie who showed promise during training camp, unfortunately suffered an injury that's going to keep him sidelined for the foreseeable future. That's tough news for any young player trying to establish himself in this league, but it created an opportunity for the Lions to address an immediate need. And when I say immediate, I mean they didn't waste a single second. The front office knew exactly who they wanted to fill that spot. Someone who's already familiar with the system, someone who's proven he can contribute on special teams, and someone who brings the kind of speed and versatility that fits perfectly with what Dan Campbell wants to do on this roster. The Detroit Lions announced on Wednesday that they've signed linebacker Ty Summers to the active roster, calling him up from the practice squad. Now, before you say, wait, wasn't he just on the practice squad? Let me explain why this move is more significant than it might appear on the surface. Ty Summers isn't some unknown commodity. This is a guy who's been in the NFL since 2019, when the Green Bay Packers selected him in the 7th round. Yes, he came from our biggest rival, but let me tell you something about Summers. He's a grinder. He's appeared in 86 games over his career, which for a 7th-round pick is actually impressive longevity in this league. He's got 90 career tackles, and while he hasn't been a defensive starter, he's carved out a legitimate role as a core special teams player. That's exactly what this team needs right now. Let me give you some context on why this signing matters so much at this particular moment. Summers already appeared in 3 games for the Lions earlier this season before they released him from the active roster in October and signed him to the practice squad the following day. In those 3 games, he played 53% of the special team snaps with no defensive snaps. That tells you everything you need to know about his role. He's a special teams ace. And Dan Campbell values those guys more than most coaches in this league. Campbell has always emphasized that special teams can swing games, and we just saw that firsthand against Minnesota. When the Vikings made those key plays in the kicking game, it shifted momentum, it gave them confidence, and it put our defense in tough position. Summers is insurance against that happening again. He's a guy who understands assignments, plays with speed, and brings energy to a unit that needs to be consistently excellent if we're going to make a deep playoff run. But here's what really excites me about this move, the versatility factor. Summers gives the Lions another linebacker who can step in if needed, whether it's on defense in certain packages or primarily on special teams. We've seen injuries pile up across the league this season, and having depth at every position is critical. The Lions have already dealt with some injury concern, and adding a player like Summers, who's been in the system, who knows the playbook, and who's ready to contribute immediately is a smart, calculated move. This isn't about making a splash or grabbing headlines. This is about building a complete roster that can win games in multiple phases, and that's exactly what championship teams do. Now, let's talk about what's ahead. The Lions are getting ready to face the Washington Commanders, and the timing of this move couldn't be better. Washington just lost their starting quarterback Jaden Daniels to an elbow injury, which obviously impacts their offensive capability. This is a game the Lions absolutely need to win to bounce back from that Minnesota loss and reassert themselves as one of the top teams in the NFC. Having Summers on the active roster gives the coaching staff more options, more flexibility, and more confidence that the special teams unit will execute at a high level. Every game from here on out matters, and the margin for error is razor thin. Making sure we have the right personnel in place to handle every situation is crucial, and that's exactly what this signing accomplished. I also want to mention some other roster moves the Lions made this week, because they show how the front office is managing the roster strategically. The team released offensive tackle Justin Herron and tight end Kenny Yeboah, both of whom have been on injured reserve since the preseason. Yeboah was particularly interesting because he was expected to compete as the primary blocking tight end after signing as a free agent, but he injured his knee in the Pro Football Hall of Fame game and never got a chance to show what he could do. Both players reached injury settlements with the Lions, which freed up roster space and allowed the team to make moves like bringing Summers back to the active roster. It's all part of the chess game that NFL front offices play throughout the season. And Brad Holmes continues to show he's one of the sharpest executives in the league. So here's my take on all of this. The Ty Summers signing might not generate the same buzz as a blockbuster trade would have, but it's exactly the kind of move that winning organizations make. It addresses a specific need. It adds depth and versatility. It brings in a player who's already familiar with the system, and it shows that the coaching staff is responding immediately to what they saw on tape against Minnesota. Dan Campbell talked about special teams being a factor in that loss, and less than a week later, he's got another proven special teams contributor on the active roster. That's accountability, that's adaptability, and that's the kind of leadership that makes me confident this team is built for the long haul. Summers brings speed, he brings experience, and he brings the kind of blue-collar mentality that fits perfectly with the culture Campbell has established in Detroit. This isn't about one player being a savior. This is about continuing to build a complete roster that can win in all 3 phases. And that's exactly what separates good teams from great teams. As we head into this matchup with Washington, I'm optimistic about where this team is headed. Yes, the Minnesota loss hurt. Yes, there are things we need to clean up on defense and special teams. But this is still one of the most talented rosters in the entire league. And Dan Campbell has proven time and time again that he knows how to get this team refocused after a setback. Adding Ty Summers is just one piece of the puzzle, but it's a piece that could make a real difference down the stretch. I expect to see him out there making plays on special teams, bringing energy and helping this team get back in the win column against the Commanders. Now I want to hear from you. What do you think about the Lions bringing Ty Summers back to the active roster? Do you believe special teams will be the difference maker in these tight games down the stretch? Are you confident this team can bounce back strong against Washington and make a statement in the second half of the season? Drop your thoughts in the comments below because I love hearing from this community, and your insights always add another layer to these discussions. If you want to stay updated with the latest Lions news, breaking roster moves, and in-depth analysis like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. I'm here every single day bringing you the content you need to stay informed and connected to this team we all love. Let's keep this momentum going. Let's support our Lions. And let's get ready to watch this team make some noise in the second half of the season. Thanks for watching Lions News Fan Report, and I'll see you in the next one.